Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Morgan. This is my channel Pisces Paperbacks, and today I'm going to be doing my combined May and June wrap up. I'm going to be doing these in a little bit of a different order than I usually do. Typically, I'm big on chronological order, like the order in which I read the books, but today I've decided to switch it up, and I'm going to be reviewing them in the order like least favorite to favorite, so lowest to highest rated of the books that I've read in the last 2 months. So let's just get on into it. My lowest rated book of the 2 months, May and June, was Slow Boat by Hideo Furukawa. This is a translated from Japanese literary fiction novel that came out in 2003, and it's translated by David Boyd. And I purchased this a few years ago because Ariel Bissett mentioned that she bought it on her podcast like in 2020, and I can be influenced. I'm a follower. So this is a translated literary fiction novel about a man, I believe he's unnamed, and he is trying to get out of Tokyo. He's never left the boundary of the city, and he is just like, I have had 3 girlfriends, and they've all left me, and I just can't get out of the city, and this is my one shot. So it cuts between him on this one day in winter, I believe, where he's just like trying to get out of the city, and it's kind of dreamy. He's kind of out of it. He just doesn't really know. He's a little directionless. And then that's jumping back and forth between that and then his memories of 3 major girlfriends throughout his life. One when he was like in 5th grade, one in college, and one when he's like 30, I believe, and how they affected him. This book just, I don't think it was badly written. I think it was fine. It just wasn't for me. It's a bit crude. Like, this guy is not shy about talking about how much he loves boobs, and it was just like not the style of book that I enjoy, I think. And I don't know if that's because I don't read a lot of literary fiction, or I don't read a lot of Japanese translated fiction, and maybe I just like need to get into it, and it's just, this is a good one to start with. I don't know what's up with it, but it just wasn't really the book for me. I just didn't love it. So 2 stars. The next highest rated book on this list is Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma R. Alban. This is a sapphic historical fiction novel that I read in May during my 24-hour reading vlog where I tried to read as much as I could in one day. This was my last book, and I don't know if I was just loopy from how tired I was, but I'm pretty confident that I just didn't love this book. There were parts of it that were good and fine, and so I gave it 3 stars. I think it's decidedly average, personally, but I didn't love the almost childish reactions that the main characters had. I feel like they responded to things really immaturely. While I enjoyed their romance, while I loved the Taylor Swift reference in the cover, this book was just a little all over the place for me, so I gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I might be interested in listening to the audiobook of the second book in the series, which is about one of their cousins and a boy that he knew in school. So, you know, it's another Taylor Swift reference for the title. It could be fun. I'm not like a hater, but I didn't love it. 3 stars. At 3.5 stars is The Lost Ones by Sheena Kamal. This is a mystery thriller set in Canada, in the area of like Vancouver, about a woman who gets a call out of nowhere from the parents who adopted the child she gave up for adoption like 16 years prior to the start of the book. And that child, that daughter, has now gone missing, and the parents are like, you are literally our last hope. Can you please look for her? Actually works as the kind of research assistant for both a private investigator and a journalist, so she's uniquely equipped to do this. She's also deeply traumatized, and I did enjoy this book. I thought it was interesting. There were parts of it that I thought were a bit boring, and it overall kind of, and maybe this is just because I don't really read a lot of thrillers, you know, it could be me. This book read very edgy, like she's trying to be like, I'm just so different, and like I'm just nobody, like I just don't like people, I don't get people, and people don't get me. But actually, so like that's kind of like the vibe that it gives off. But as you read and kind of like as you get to know the character more, she is a deeply traumatized woman who is working through a lot of stuff. She is mixed race and does not know her like ancestry because her dad was a part of like the indigenous scoop that happened in Canada. I really don't know much about that. It's something that I'm interested in learning more about. I've been looking into finding nonfiction books about it. Looking for her daughter. She has like no support, and it's just her and her dog. I did like it. I don't think I'm going to read further on in this series. So if you're looking into reading more books by non-American authors, I do recommend this one if you're into thrillers. It was pretty good. 3.25, 3.5 stars. At 3.5, I have The Appeal by Janice Hallet. I also read this one during my 24-hour readathon, and this is an alternatively told through like messages and emails mystery set in England by a British author about a family whose granddaughter is diagnosed with cancer and puts out an appeal or a fundraiser to raise money for her treatment, and the whole community kind of becomes involved in fundraising this money, and you know at the outset that someone has died. Like, they are now investigating this theater group that's kind of at the heart of all of this fundraising, and the story is told through emails and like recovered messages between all of these people that are involved in this theater group, and those like papers and those files are being gone through by 2 law interns, and the law interns are working for a lawyer who's like, I think the wrong person has been sent to jail, and I want you to read through all of the things that we have and see if you can come up with any theories that I have not come up with yet. So that's kind of the framing narrative. I did like this. It read really quickly, which is nice. A lot of the pages are like emails, so it's not the full page, and messages. I will say my least favorite part of the first 3/4 of the book are the messages that are between the 2 interns, because they just feel like they're like, let's make sure the reader understood what we were trying to go for, so let's be a little heavy-handed in this message part so that they understand what they were supposed to pick up from the previous section of emails. It just felt a little like, did you get it? Are you sure? Okay, now we can move on, rather than being a little bit more subtle. But in their defense, there's stuff I didn't pick up on, so sometimes those messages were helpful to me, so I can't be that much of a bitch about it. Overall, I just didn't love the end, because you finish all the emails and then it is just basically emails back and forth between the law interns for the last chunk of the book, and those interns are just, to me, the least interesting people in this whole story. So it felt a little like, oh, now we're just with them for the rest of the time. So there are things I liked about this, there are things I didn't. If you're interested in just a true whodunit mystery with a really interesting framing narrative told in an interesting way, I do think this was pretty good. 3.5 stars. Now we're getting into 4-star territory. So my first 4-star I want to talk about is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This is my 3rd book by T. Kingfisher, and the 3rd book that I've given 4 stars. Nettle and Bone is a dark fairy tale inspired story about a girl named Mara. She is the youngest daughter of the king and queen of a very small, poorer kingdom, and her older sisters were both married off to the same man. First, her oldest sister, who very quickly after her wedding dies and her body is sent back to her home kingdom, and then they marry her second older sister to this prince in this much richer, bigger kingdom north of where she grew up. And so Mara is a bit sheltered. She was kind of sent away to live in a convent, so she was raised kind of as a nun, and when she goes to visit her sister, she realizes that her sister is in an abusive relationship. Like, this guy probably killed her oldest sister, and now her sister, who is still alive, is in danger. So Mara decides to set out and meet up with a bone witch, I believe. That is kind of the catalyst of this story. Mara kind of collects friends along the way, and they travel north to the kingdom to confront this prince and try to save her older sister. So it starts off, and I didn't love the writing. The very first chapter, I was like, ooh, I love beautiful writing, but this is a little purpley for me. But as it continues, it kind of settles into itself, and it becomes this really fun, quirky, found family kind of quest road trip story, while also having some very serious topics that I think it handles really well. It's obviously dealing with domestic abuse and intimate partner violence and kind of all the things that come along with that, and loving someone who's in that kind of situation. So I really enjoyed this by the end, and it was so quick. I read this into my 24-hour reading vlog, and I just really had a good time. I think this is one that I, on a reread, could like even more, so that's what's really exciting to me. This is also my first T. Kingfisher that I've read that is a just fantasy, straight up fantasy, rather than being a horror, so it's really good to know she has range, and I enjoy that. The next 4-star is She Is a Haunting by Tran. This is really fun because I didn't know before I picked this up that it's a Philadelphia-born author. They grew up in this area. Jade, the main character of this book, is from Philadelphia and is planning to attend UPenn in the fall, and like talks about all these things that I'm like, I know what you're talking about. I've been there. So that was really fun. But this book is about Jade. She is spending the summer in Vietnam with her father, who she has not spoken to in like 5 years. They are estranged. And she, her younger sister, and her father are staying in this big house that he is fixing up to become a bed and breakfast. It is a French colonial home. And this book is kind of Jade confronting generational trauma of her people, because she is Vietnamese, and kind of dealing with all of that, as well as confronting the relationship and the history between her and her father, who left them when she was younger. And her younger siblings have less harsh feelings towards him because they were younger when that all happened, and she hates him, but she has to be there for like 8 weeks because he will pay for her college if she like spends the summer there and like makes the website for his bed and breakfast. So that is kind of the premise. This is a haunted house. And when I say haunted house, that house is fucking haunted. Sometimes it's like a haunted house story and you're like, ooh, little creepy. No, this house is like rotting their food and like haunting her dreams and making bugs show up places. Like, this house is fucking haunted. I really liked this book. The reason it's a 4-star rather than a 4.5 or a 5 is because I did find aspects of it confusing. It has kind of a both very like short sentence, like quick, blunt writing style, while also being very lyrical and metaphorical. So sometimes stuff would happen and I'd be like, I don't know if I got that. But by the end, I was like, I really like this. I feel like for a YA horror novel, it really didn't pull any punches. It really went there. And I also really enjoyed the bug stuff. I don't know what it is, but I really enjoy when horror books have bug stuff that's kind of gross, like bug horror. That's something that I hated about Primal Animals last year that I read, and I was like, there's not enough bug horror in this book. There's bugs on the cover. Where are the bugs? This book, it has bugs for sure. So I really, really enjoyed this. 4 stars for sure. I think this is their debut. It's also a queer book. This has a sapphic romance in it. Jade is grappling with being bisexual and not out to her mom or her family, and kind of having an estranged relationship with her best friend as well. So yeah, I think this is, yes, their debut novel. I will absolutely be checking out whatever they come up with after. I'm in. You got me. I'm sold. My next 4-star is The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. This is my first book by John Scalzi. I was kind of in the mood for a sci-fi. Actually, I didn't even know what I was in the mood for. I think I texted my friend Julia. I was like, I don't know what to read. And she said, pick a sci-fi book. And I was like, got it. Okay, done. And then I read this in like 3 days. This is so fun. It's not deep. It's really not trying to be deep. In the afterword, John Scalzi was like, I was trying so hard to write this book, and COVID happened, and everything was horrible, and then I finally was just like dragging myself through this book, and then my computer, after 10 years of the same processes, my computer deleted the book, and I gave up. And instead, I wrote this. And this is just the fun, lighthearted thing that I needed to process all of the stress of 2020. And so that's what this is. So this is like a fun, campy 80s movie in book form. I've never seen a Godzilla. Actually, I've seen one Godzilla movie once in high school. The one that came out in 2013, 2014. Don't remember it. But now I'm like, I should watch all the Godzilla movies. You know what I mean? So this book is about Jamie Gray. He, right before COVID, gets fired from like a corporate job he has and kind of ends up being a food delivery driver. And he is delivering food, and one of the people he delivers to is someone he went to college with. So he studied, I think, English literature. I don't know what he studied in college, but he did his like master's on like science fiction literature. So he kind of like had that background, and this guy knew him from college, and he's like, hey, I have a job opening in my job, and you just need to be physically fit. Like, you need to be able to pick stuff up, but like they do all the training on the job. I could vouch for you. We're leaving next week and you won't be back for 6 months. And it's absolutely private. Like, NDA's out the wazoo. You can't tell anyone about it. What do you think? And Jamie is desperate. So he's like, yeah, I'll take the job. And he gets there, and they are transported through a portal to an alternate universe of Earth where Godzilla's and like Kaiju, like the giant lizards exist. And they're just like, yep, we study this. And so he's just on another planet now, basically. And he's making friends. And then there's like corporate greed coming in as the enemy kind of vibe. And so it's really fun. I will say my biggest critique of this is that you get like half the way through and you're like, okay, where's like the conflict? At least I was like, okay, where's the conflict? But it gets there, and overall, this book is just like so fun. I will say that if you are bothered by people in books not having dialogue like real people who exist in real life, don't read this one. Nobody speaks like this in real life. They are talking like movie characters from a fun B-list, like D-list 80s movie. You know what I mean? They're quipping. They're snarky. Like, that is the vibe. But if you're looking for something that is so easy to read, like so fun, I highly recommend this. It's really fun. 4 stars. Couldn't give it a 5 because like it's just like, it's not that kind of book, but it was so fun. I will read more from this author. At 4.25 stars, the first book I finished in May, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. This is the second book in the Emily Wilde series, which I absolutely loved the first book when I read it last year. And this book was also very good. I really couldn't give it that much higher of a score because even though I really loved it, I took like a 2-month break in the middle of reading this book. I got into a scene that made me uncomfortable and I paused it, and then the audiobook went back to the library and I was like, oh, okay. And then I just wasn't reading anything for 3 months, so I was like, guess I'll wait. And then when I got back into reading, I finished this. So this is the second step of the Emily Wilde story. It's been like 6 months, a year, not a year. It's been a bit since her first escapades in the first book, and she's now working at her university, and she gets the opportunity to go to this other country in Europe and investigate the disappearance of somebody in the past who was looking for Fairy, and she's also helping her maybe boyfriend, Wendell Bamblebee, discover the door to get back to his realm, because he is in a conflict with the ruler of his realm, of which he is the rightful ruler. That's kind of the whole thing. And so it's another kind of found family road trip vibe. They're learning different customs, they're encountering new fae, and overall it has that like personality and touch of whimsy that I love in my fantasies. I love stuff that's whimsical, like sue me. I really love the characters. I feel like this book is very voicey. It's also an epistolary novel in that it's written in diary or journal entries. Emily is really big into recounting, like she's a scientist. She takes notes. And so she takes notes, and then she also has this journal where she recounts her days, and that's kind of how the story plays out. I love that. I love epistolary novels because they are so rooted in the thought processes and the mentality of the character. Like, you are truly getting this book through their eyes, not just in like a first-person narration way, but in like, this is how this character would tell this story. You know what I mean? So there's that inherent unreliable narratorness, except in this situation, it's just like because of being human rather than purposeful unreliableness that sometimes happens in like thrillers where it pisses me off. I love it in this case. So this was a 4.25. There were parts of it where I was like, it's dragging like a... I didn't love it like as much as the first one, but it's still really, really good. There's such beautiful books. Like, it's truly like so impressive, and I can't wait for the third one, which will probably come out next year. I don't know. At 4.5 stars, I read Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe, the full name of which is Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty. So this is a nonfiction book, like I said, of the Sacklers. They own Purdue Pharma, and they and their company basically created OxyContin, which is the opioid that maybe kickstarted the opioid epidemic. So this book is a history of their family specifically. It's not specifically about the opioid crisis, but you know, it is. But it's about the family and their involvement and their history and their legacy, starting in the very early 1900s with the 3 Sackler brothers, Arthur, Mortimer, and Raymond, and how Arthur kind of founded the dynasty, and then how Raymond and Mortimer continued the legacy, and how they became the house and like influential family that they are, how they made their money, and kind of it's interesting because as you're reading it, it feels like a history, like the story of the opioid epidemic, but it's impossible to divorce the opioid epidemic and like OxyContin from the family. Like they are intertwined, and so it's kind of the story of like what happens when capitalistic greed like overcomes everything, and that is how you get the Sackler dynasty. And it was just honestly fascinating. There was never a point where I was bored or uninterested. It is very, very well researched. There's an afterwards where Keefe talks about his like research methods, and he is an investigative journalist, and so he also mentions like stuff like that he maybe investigated during the course of the book. There's a family tree with all relevant people on the end papers and the front and back, and it's honestly, I thought this was so well done. I really am kind of feeling nonfiction lately. I've read a couple other memoirs this year. I'm reading like Braiding Sweetgrass right now, but I really think I need to get more into these kind of like hyper specific histories, because I also loved Radium Girls and Code Girls, and I just feel like that's something I should get into. So 4.5 stars, highly recommend. I also really, really liked the audiobook. I thought the audiobook was really good. And then there was actually a point in that, I think I was in a vlog that I said this, but I really liked the narrator, and I looked it up and it was the author. So I definitely will read more from this author, and I think that I'm just gonna read more. I just am feeling nonfiction. I don't know. And then, oh my god, my last 2 books of the month, I had 2 5 stars in May and June, and they are such different like genres. It just doesn't feel fair to rank them because they are fundamentally different, but they're both gay. So let's start off with the pairing, because I've already talked about this in a vlog. So this was the first book that I read, my 24-hour reading vlog, and listen, this is the 3rd adult romance by Casey McQuiston. They wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue. They wrote One Last Stop. Red, White, and Royal Blue has fundamentally changed me as a person. One Last Stop I loved, but like it's really just not a very good book. This is a good fucking book, bitch. This is about Theo and Kit, and they were childhood friends. They started dating in their 20s. They dated for like 3 years, and their relationship kind of exploded right as they were about to go on a food and wine tour of Europe. And so they are given these vouchers because they just broke up. They can't go on this tour. Like, they're not going to speak for years now. But the voucher for this trip is about to expire, and they both independently decide, I'm going to use this voucher as a last fuck you. Like, I've moved on. I want to see and tour all these places. I'm going to do it. And so they end up on this tour together, and they're like, let's make peace. Let's reconcile. And in order to like make sure that, you know, prove that we're over each other, we're going to make it into a little hookup competition to see which one of us can hook up with the most people while we're touring the sexy romantic locales of Spain, France, and Italy. Okay? This book, this is buy for buy, slut for slut excellence. It's the most graphic, most explicit, the most sexy of Casey McQuiston's books so far. It is also so special. Like, Kit is so lovely. Theo is so wonderful. It also has Casey McQuiston, who is non-binary, their first non-binary lead with Theo, and just how they and Kit understand each other. It's making me emotional. This book is so good. I love that it's split in halves. So the first half is from from Theo's perspective, and the second half is from Theo's perspective. The second half is from Kit's perspective. I don't know if I messed that up before. I can't remember what I said, but I love getting to hear their voices so distinctly and how they complement each other so well. They're truly like two halves of the same coin, like intertwined by fate. I don't know. I can't explain it. I loved this book. It comes out next month. I am going to buy a finished copy. And I'm never going to shut up about it. So I absolutely love this book. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. But I haven't talked about this book yet. This breakaway success. I bought Cuckoo by Gretchen Felker-Martin last month, 2 months ago, randomly. Was just feeling it. I was like, why not? And I read it. This is the book that I picked up to read on the beach instead of Slow Boat. Thank fuck I did, because I fucking loved this. This is one of my favorite first chapters, or like prologues, that I've ever read. It's basically a short story that is connected to the main story, but it is set 5 years before. It's completely unrelated in terms of characters, but it was just phenomenal. I was just like, I'm a big gasper when I read, when I'm like surprised by anything. I was averaging like 4 gasps a page. I'm gonna be so serious. So, okay, this is a horror novel about a bunch of kids, teenagers, who are sent to conversion camp in like the desert of Nowheresville, America. They are at this camp and they're like, something is not right. These people are not human, maybe? Some people don't like this because it sometimes feels about like giving away the game too early. But the thing that I love about the prologue of this book is that in this prologue, you, the reader, see what is wrong with the people who come back from this conversion camp, but you don't understand it, and then these characters are discovering it. So you, as the reader, are like, fuck, they're gonna find out soon, but like, I don't know what it is, but it's horrible. And so there's that tension of like knowing something they don't know without the annoyance of knowing something that they should know, because how could they know yet? You know what I mean? I fucking loved this book. It is gross. It is horrific. It's crunchy and goopy. It has body horror. It is kind of, it is speculative, like unreal. Like, it's not a realistic horror fiction book. There's speculative characteristics here. Phenomenal. I loved the characters. They are so angry, and it's so like real and like raw, and they're so queer and amazing. And despite the fact that there's like 6 or 7 of them that you're like trying to keep track of, I at least found that their voices were so distinct. I cannot begin to explain how much I fucking love this book. I told everybody about it. I was like, it's a conversion camp horror novel. And everybody was like, you seem really excited about that. And I was like, I am! It's so good! And I immediately bought this author's first book, Manhunt. It's on my table back there. And I'm gonna read it soon because I'm obsessed. I'm gonna read anything she comes out with. Listen, girlhood is a spectrum, and I embrace that. Okay, bitches, it's been 40 minutes, and I need to be finished talking because my throat hurts. I'm also going to a Christmas in July party today, so I really need to get ready. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. Let me know if I've sold you on any of my favorites, if you think you're gonna pick them up. I would love to hear that. And let me know what you've been reading lately, because I've been reading, honestly, quite a bit, especially after 3 months of nothing. So slay, let's go. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!